and so I'm going to be talking specifically about acupuncture treatment for cancer palliative pain care. And I apologize, my slides are much more pedestrian than Aram's, and this is the only picture on them. The rest is boring old words, and it's a shame Gil can't be here because I've been practicing today, getting my talk down from an overlong 10 minutes down to something more like 5 minutes, and now I see you've got to try and expand it again. So perhaps I can just talk a bit slower. Yeah, which will be good for people whose native language isn't English anyhow. Okay, so we know that traditional medicine has been promoted quite strongly by the World Health Organization in the last 10 years, and oncology is a leading area in this. And what the WHO particularly like is integrative oncology. In other words, traditional practices alongside the conventional ones. And we know that acupuncture is one of the favorite alternatives for this. It's got a high level of use and it's endorsed in quite a lot of national and international guidelines, and there's a lot of published evidence to support it. However, I think it's true to say that very few of our members actually work in such integrative services. And this is true also for the specific case of palliative cancer care. So what would be the requirements? What would practitioners need if they were wanting to start such an integrative cancer service? And I'm not suggesting this is an exhaustive list. There are people who probably know the subject area much better than me, but here are some ideas. So you'd want some understanding of conventional setup that they want to work with. You want some useful contacts, both in conventional services and also in alternative area. You'd want to know how to talk to conventional doctors, service providers, etc. And you want some key pieces of evidence to support your sales pitch, if you like. So the evidence bit is the most obvious area of interest for the research task force. So let's look at that now. And we can see that, in fact, for the specific case of acupuncture and palliative cancer care pain, there's not much evidence at all being published. But 1921's a bit of a bumper year because there are two new systematic reviews out this year. And you can just see the titles of them here. And so systematic reviews are particularly useful because they summarize a whole load of data from individual studies in one place. So you don't have to go out searching and looking for it wherever it is, the components of it. And the second reason is that it's the sort of evidence that scientists like. And they like it because the systematic procedures are meant to guard against bias. For example, avoid cherry picking, i.e. that you're able just to pick out and review the papers that are going to tell you what you want to hear. So the next two slides are side-by-side comparison of some of the aspects of these two systematic reviews. And we can see, and I've just highlighted some of them because I'm being short of time to talk about the whole lot, but you could perhaps talk about all of them. So one comes out of the Mayo Clinic in the USA. So the Mayo Clinic is a very prestigious biomedical operation in the USA. And paper 2 comes from a prestigious organization in China, Shanghai University of TCM. Now, the USA review only called upon Western databases and English language papers, whereas the Chinese one looked also at Chinese databases. As a result of that, we can see that the US review came up with only 5 studies, and of those, only 2 are actually trials, 3 are observational studies, whereas the Chinese review has come up with 59 studies, which is a massive difference. And of those, 41 are control studies, and 19, I think, it's hidden underneath the pictures of people. I think it's, let's just look at my crib sheet. 19, is it 18, 19 that are non-control studies. And the vast majority of the controlled trials were done in China, whereas most of the uncontrolled ones were done in the USA. And you can see that the average size of these studies is fairly modest, sort of 40, 50 people. Now, both of the reviews found that all the studies showed acupuncture to be effective and safe for treating cancer pain, palliative care, cancer pain. The Chinese review, because it was a quantitative one of many more papers, was able to do much more analysis. And so we can see that from the controlled trials, acupuncture plus drugs was statistically and clinically significantly better than drugs alone. But from the uncontrolled, we find that acupuncture was effective, not just in the short term, but also in the long term, which is often an issue with reviewing evidence. There's insufficient evidence about long-term effects. Neither of them found any significant adverse effects. The Chinese paper suggested that, as well as this, acupuncture also has the positive benefit of being able to reduce some of the drug-related adverse events. Now, looking down to the conclusions, we can see that they're sort of the same, but they're also subtly different. And so whereas the Chinese paper unequivocally says the evidence supports acupuncture for palliative cancer pain, the US paper says, yeah, it's effective and safe, it appears to be, but we need better research. We need more trials and better trials. But of course, they were only working on the basis of those 5 papers. So the question you ask at the end of this is, how useful are these papers for our members? And would they convince conventional medics? Now, I'm not actually here today to tell you the answers to these questions, but to use them as an illustration of what the research task force might do for you. And most practitioners would need help to answer questions about strengths, limitations, and credibility of research studies. And that sort of help might come through prepared documents, through webinars, through one-to-one support, various possibilities. Here's a longer list of things that you might want a research expert to help you with or do for you. Now, the RTF obviously has some research expertise and may have a role in providing such help. And this list doesn't even touch on supporting practitioners who want to do their own research. So what about the specific issue of starting an integrative cancer care service? Well, there are various possible roles that I've just listed here for a national or international TCM organisation. Producing the evidence package fits most obviously for a research group such as the RTF. But research-minded people could be useful in other roles too. The networking, for example. Now, researchers tend to meet up with other researchers, go to conferences, talk with them, discuss papers together, collaborate in work together even. And if such a project were to be a success, it could be used as a blueprint for setting up integrative services in other areas for other conditions, not just pain. So I chose to talk about palliative care because there's already been some initial moves made in this respect. But I'm not suggesting that the ETCMA could do all of this on its own, just play a part, perhaps develop a framework, perhaps give some coordination. In any case, what we do must reflect the wishes of the member associations and of the members of those associations, and that's what we're here to discuss at this meeting. Thank you very much.